So a lot of people may not know this, but you and a lot of people like you live in El Paso, have a home in El Paso, pay taxes in El Paso in the United States, but work in Ciudad Juarez in Mexico.
Correct.
Why is that? If someone said, hey, Armando, why don't you just work in El Paso where your family is, you don't have to worry about this commute to Juarez, how do you respond to that?
Well, normally all the manufacturing jobs, that's what I do, are here in Juarez.
So your company manufactures things, it makes things.
Correct. We do motors, and as you can see, basically that's a lot of opportunities, a lot of jobs here in Juarez on manufacturing.
Israel, good morning.
Good morning, Beto.
How are you?
Perfect. And you?
You're on your way to school?
Yes.
You mind if I join you?
Oh, that'll be great.
Let's do it. Come on.
Do it.
So Israel, tell me what you're studying at UTEP. What are you going to class for?
I'm studying mechanical engineering. I'm a senior. It's my last semester.
And you are a Mexican citizen.
Yes.
Not a U.S. citizen.
Not a U.S. citizen.
And how are you able to cross the bridge into the United States and go to school at UTEP at the University of Texas at El Paso?
So I have my student visa, an F1 visa.
¿Y por qué cruzó usted hoy?
A veces vengo a hacer compras o comprar algo, vengo a alguna cosa, a ver a mis nietos, algo así.
My car here.
Okay,
Yeah.
you mind if I jump in?
Nope, for sure.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. I'm going to assume you're a U.S. citizen.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about being an American who works in Mexico. Maybe how long you've been doing that, what that's like, how unusual or typical that is.
I was assigned down here in 1994, so I've been doing this for 22 years. And I love it. Have had the opportunity to go elsewhere, but I really enjoy the El Paso area, and I really like working in Mexico. Great people, great work environment, very, very satisfying.
Manuel, buenos días. ¿Puede cruzar con usted hoy, esta mañana?
Sí, señor.
Ok. Manuel, gracias por esta oportunidad cruzar con usted. You mentioned that depending on what the wait times are, you'll use either the Bridge of the Americas, the Free Bridge, or the Zaragoza Bridge. Tell me how quickly you might get over or how long it might take. What's the best scenario and what is the worst scenario you've experienced?
Well, like in normally I can take up to, I have been 2 hours on the line. That's kind of extreme. My average waiting time is like an hour. Rare cases is like no lines at all.
And you're over in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're on your way to the University of Texas at El Paso over near where I live in Sunset Heights. How long will it take us to get from your neighborhood to the bridge?
Around 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
Like that.
And then how long do you typically wait at the bridge in order to cross?
It changes between 30 minutes to maybe an hour and 15 minutes.
What's the shortest you've ever waited and what's the longest you've ever waited?
Oh, shortest, I mean, a minute, something like that.
Okay.
And the longest, I've done more than 2 hours, more than 2 hours.
More than 2 hours?
Yeah.
The bridge traffic is not predictable. Depends on the day, depends on, I don't know, millions of things. Every time you think you have a theory, it changes. So that traffic, particularly around Christmas time, can be hours.
And who do you see, who's on the bridge with you right now? What are the folks who are crossing right now doing?
I mean, I see a lot of students usually, yeah, but I think mostly there are people that are going to work over there.
So most of the plates I see just out
Texas
plates, a couple of Chihuahua plates.
Yeah.
A real mix, right, from both
Yes.
sides of the border, the U.S. and Mexico.
Yes.
¿Cómo fue hoy su experiencia en La Puente?
No, pues hay poca gente, está el flujo más rápido porque no hay mucha gente.
Y esta experiencia no necesitamos esperar más de 5 o 10 minutos para cruzar. ¿Es típico para usted en su experiencia cruzando los puentes?
No, pues depende de las fechas. En Navidad, pues está uno hasta 2, 3 horas en peatón.
3 horas para cruzar. En el peor situación, ¿cuántas horas esperaba usted? Y en el mejor situación, ¿cuántos minutos?
En la mejor situación que yo me he topado a lo largo de los cruces ha sido media hora a 40 minutos, lo mejor. Ya hablando de lo peor, pues sí hemos durado 5 hasta 6 horas.
6 horas.
Para brincar hacia Estados Unidos.
¿Y por qué? Porque han cerrado unas de las líneas o...
La mayor de las veces,
¿Qué fue la
mayor de las veces es porque no está al 100% el personal abierto en las casetas de proceso.
En el lado
Tanto mexicano como americano.
Sí.
Como en este caso, ahorita si vamos lentos, ya según el tiempo que traemos nosotros, ya hubiera cruzado. Y en otras, pues las revisiones que te ponen, o se les va el sistema, que es muy recurrente en estos días, se les ha ido mucho el sistema y procesan lento.
It's interesting, we were talking to the truck driver today about what his job is like, and on the negative side he mentioned the stress of being in lines and not knowing how long those lines will be or when he'll be out of them. So you're kind of relieved of that stress.
Well, because you have no control. Right? You're just like at the mercy of everyone else. And I think, they've done a really good job of opening up more lanes, of making sure that it's efficient from a crossing standpoint. But nevertheless, there's just that many more people in that lane.
And if you could change one thing about how these bridges work, what would it be?
I think the inspection should be faster and the lane shouldn't be closed. The inspection right now is going normal, but sometimes I see cars that take like 3 to 4 minutes, and you might think 3 to 4 minutes is not that long, but when you're in a lane with 30, 40 cars, 3 to 4 minutes is pretty long for the car.
And just guessing, looking at the bridge in the last 20 minutes that we've been on it, we're here with hundreds of cars.
Yes.
Over the course of the day. Thousands, if not tens of thousands of cars will cross these bridges. So a couple of minutes extra delay reverberates and causes a slowdown for everybody else. That makes sense. So it can be 20 minutes if you're going southbound and you don't have to go through an inspection and there's not a long line, and then it can be 20 minutes as it just was for us, or it could be hours depending on how many inspectors there are, how many customs officers, how long the line is, how many people are crossing. And so tell me a little bit more about what Hannon Systems does.
We manufacture automotive components. We currently have 4 plants active in Ciudad Juarez.
And the all these different products that are assembled or produced here, are they all for export back to the United States?
Yes.
The statistic we are given is that on average 40% of the value of anything imported from Mexico was made in the United States. So that I get to tell my friends from all over the country that I serve with that jobs in their districts are connected to what's being produced in Mexico, because the parts that your employees are working with started out in the United States.
Correct.
And then eventually will, in some form or other, make their way back into the United States.
Mm-hmm.
¿Y qué está haciendo ahora?
En este momento yo voy a pagar lo que es el peaje por uso de puentes aquí en la caseta. Buenos días.
falta la inspección del lado americano?
Sí, no me falta la inspección del lado americano. Igual el procedimiento que se hizo en la mexicana, se presentan los documentos, que es la carga que traigo, hacia dónde la llevo. Ya depende de lo que me diga el custom, si es revisión o me voy libre.
Dicen que cruzan aquí en estos puentes, en el intercambio comercial, casi 90,000 millones cada año, y que afectan en una manera muy positiva la economía de México, también los Estados Unidos.
Son millones,
Sí.
millones los que se pierden en tiempos de espera de cruces. Nos afecta pues a todos, porque tanto del lado americano, que es cuando el transporte que más se usa es materia prima hacia las empresas para elaborar el producto terminado para traerlo a Estados Unidos. No brincamos materia prima, pues no hay producto terminado.
Last year there were 32 million inspections that those customs officers performed with crossers coming over from Juarez. So it's a lot of people. They have a lot of documents to check. They're working in tough conditions. There are people who want to come into this country and do us harm, or there are people who want to smuggle drugs or humans or other things that we need to prevent and stop. And so I can imagine the stress that they're under. Do you have any problems with security or safety working and commuting on the Mexican side of the border?
Me personally?
Yes.
No.
So now relative to 2010, 2011, Juarez is a much safer place, but at one point it was considered the deadliest city in the world.
Yeah.
During that time, did you have to take extra precautions for your personal safety?
We did take extra precautions, but you're correct. At this point, that's not necessary. It's really back to where it was, maybe even better than what it was prior to that time.
What you mentioned the waiting times when you're on the bridge. You mentioned sometimes up to 2 hours. What is that like for your kids? What's that like for your family?
Yeah, well, like sometimes we miss a lot of things. For example, when they practice soccer.
But you don't know until you get there.
Correct.
So there's no way for you to tell your wife, for example, or your children, I will for sure be at your soccer game.
Correct.
You say, I hope I'm going to be at your soccer game, and we'll see if we get there. And apart from work, I assume you go over Monday through Friday. Are you ever in Juarez for dinner, visiting friends,
All of
doing
that.
some sightseeing?
All of that, and particularly when we get relatives and friends that come down from other parts of the United States, people that come from other countries that are visiting our plants, they all want a true Mexican experience. So we'll spend a lot of time doing dinners, doing markets, just going to a normal store and seeing what's different in the shopping center versus what they're familiar with.
And for those people not from the border, or it's their first time visiting, how does the experience contrast with their expectations?
Really favorable compared to their expectations, because they come down with a whole host of perceptions on what they expect to see, and they're always so much more pleased at how friendly the people are and how nice the area is and how good the food was and what a good time they had. So it's always favorable.
What have you learned in your experience being in El Paso, working in Juarez, working in another country every day? How has that changed your impressions of Mexico and maybe Mexican nationals, the people that you work with every day at the plant?
I don't think I have a perception of Mexican nationals versus U.S. I think if anything, you start to lose a lot of that, and it's just everybody's just people. We all have the same concerns, we all have the same worries, we all have the same stress at work, and same frustration with your families or your house or anything else. I think it really blurs the lines. Living in this area, working in Juarez, both of those things really blurs the lines between cultures.
You are a Century Pass holder.
Yes.
Which makes your commute different from someone coming back in the United States who does not have a Century Pass.
Yes.
Can you explain for us what that means and what you had to go through in order to be cleared to have a Century Pass?
It means everything to you to have a Century Pass, because otherwise you are pretty much at the mercy of the border traffic coming into the United States on any of the bridges. The bridge traffic is not predictable. Depends on the day, depends on, I don't know, millions of things. Every time you think you have a theory, it changes. So that traffic, particularly around Christmas time, can be hours. The requirements to go through Century are stringent. I've had one for almost as long as the program has been in place, so I'm not sure I remember everything, but I do know there's an FBI clearance and a criminal background clearance and some things like that you need to pass to assure the U.S. government that you are not a person who would engage in illegal activity, who would, be responsible and be able to handle the responsibility of crossing this lane.
And in return for that, you are able to cross far more quickly than you would otherwise, because they know that your risk is minimal.
Yes, absolutely.
Just crossed in from Mexico. Tell us about that experience.
We just crossed through on the commuter lane. We did it in probably 5 minutes or less. Very typical. It's what I do every day.
What would it have taken us to cross if you did not have the Century Pass?
If you were crossing through the Free Bridge or the Boda, I don't know, there's actually an app now that we can look at that'll tell us exactly what their crossing time is. It's probably 40 minutes to an hour this time of day. If you're crossing the Santa Fe Bridge, that is a pay bridge, and so this one right here, so it tends to have a little bit less traffic on it, so it might be a little bit less time. But still, you've saved yourself at least 40 minutes.
That's great. So 40 minutes compounded by,
every day of your life.
Day you do
yes.
it, you picked up some additional years to your life.
Absolutely.
By having the Century Pass.
And stress and just everything. It's just nice. You just go home just like normal.
I think that's a challenge, is to make sure, or to find some way that everyone has this amazing experience and does not have the hassle of unpredictable wait times or standing in line for hours at a time. And so I think that's our challenge on a public policy level and just in the community, to get more people to participate. In these Century and pre-inspection programs.
Absolutely.
This helps people understand that El Paso and Ciudad Juarez are really like two halves of one city.
Yeah.
And it's almost like we're crossing the bridge from one part of the city to the other part of the city.
Correct. It will be like being in the same city, basically.
Well, thank you for letting us cross with you today and better understand how this works, and for sharing your story with others who want to understand the border.
Anytime.
Thank you.